All right, it's Wellness Wednesday. And this Wellness Wednesday is sort of tying in to the theme for the week. We're going to talk about cancellation, which some of you may be going, cancel culture is not real. Hear me out on this, okay? The problem with this issue is that what most people consider the actual problem with cancel culture, which is somebody with a ton of profile and fame doing a bad thing, getting yelled at, and possibly dropped from a project or two. That's not the real issue. A lot of people that go through that, they get picked up by someone else. They, figure out how to profit from the controversy. The problem, as someone pointed out to me this week while we were talking privately, is for, regular Joe, Jane, or Jax, I'm trying to think of a gender neutral term, they're schmo, who doesn't have millions of dollars in investments and, things like that to sit on while you're figuring out the next phase of your career. If you like this sort of content on Wellness Wednesdays, help support this channel, become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK. I know that's weird that I was talking about people's bottom lines and then plug Patreon, but there's really no smooth time to plug Patreon, right? I got to do it because it's, a decent source of income when people help. But, yeah, it feels a bit tacky. But yeah, and that's the part that social shunning, that ostracization, that is not new. However, the scale of it and the inability to kind of move somewhere else to escape it because of the internet, that's what's difficult, right? Cancellation is very, very arbitrary. I've spent quite a bit of time this week talking to people who have gone through it. For people who don't know, who are fairly new to this channel, the various powers that be in gaming have tried to cancel me 4-5 times. I actually Googled myself this week and discovered articles like, oh yeah, I forgot about that one, right? I'm still here. There are people who have blacklisted me, but I just keep going. And I think the reason I have been able to keep going is, one, my business plan, with the help of a very smart MBA friend of mine, it was his birthday yesterday, factored this in. We recognized that there were going to be headwinds, that slow growth was better than, trying to do a drama channel or game some algorithm, diversify projects, stuff like that, so that it's harder for the bottom to fall out completely. But, the other thing is, I have been in the media a very long time. I have been through literal TV show cancellation. And you know what? It's not much different. When you've had a TV show canceled, even if it was on the air for years and it just sort of ran its course, there's this weird period where people don't want to be around you just in case they get like some of the loser on them. It's a very, very, very strange phenomenon. And that's similar to what happens when you run afoul of some online mob and people who you thought were your friends won't talk to you anymore. Rule number 1, someone does that to you once, unless they are profusely sorry and seem to understand what was wrong with that, they will do it to you again. So it's that Maya Angelou thing. I know it's a cliche at this point, but when a person shows you who they are, believe them the first time. If someone is a fair weather friend, they are a fair weather friend, because that is not about you. It's either about the friendship or it's about the person who is the fair weather friend. Some people are not intended to be in your life, your entire life. The best way I've heard it is some people are a sentence, some people are a paragraph, some people are a chapter, some people are a whole book in your life. And that's no one's fault. That's just the way life is, right? And I'm very distracted by my COVID hair going on today, but that's all right. Getting canceled, becoming a pariah in a particular place can be a good thing long term. Because one, it lets you know who your friends are. Two, it helps you build your resiliency. Three, it teaches you things for the next time. I mean, I'm not talking just in TV. I've been run out of entire convention circuits for being the first person to report harassment against a particular individual. And I spent years in the wilderness before, like, dozens and dozens, in some cases only women, in some cases people of all genders, came forward because one person was the first person to speak up. And sometimes that emboldens people. Sometimes it makes them so mad that that person got canceled for speaking up, that they finally overcome their fear. And that's the other important thing to understand about cancellation. Cancellation is not necessarily about you doing something wrong. Cancellation is because you, for one reason or another, upset the status quo. And having been the subject of attempted cancellations over and over and over again, this is what happens when you are actually interested in change. Most people don't like change. Most people don't want change. And the important thing to remember when you're going up against a cancel mob is that the inherent structure of the game theory here is that you have something to lose. They don't. They're either anonymous people on the internet, or as, one person this week that I said, look, okay, I caught them in a mistake for a change. And I'm like, look, I've watched you try to cancel people. I've watched you calling for people to be fired. Like, what is the appropriate accountability now that you're in those shoes, right? Do you deserve to lose your job and all your social standing? And this person said, totally bald-faced, well, I don't have a job and I don't have any social standing. And that was a huge, Oprah aha moment. That's the thing. These aren't people who are actually saying, this is unconscionable. I cannot abide this. I am saying this is not okay. This is people who just, very much like every entertainment press out there, they sell papers and magazines and get clicks by building somebody up, and it's the story of their rise, so they can tear them down. So it's the story of their fall, so they can build them back up again, because it's the story of their comeback. That's the ugly truth about how media works, how entertainment media works. And because of a merging of sort of hard news and entertainment during the Bush years, the W. Bush years, now it's all the same. Politics, social causes, it's all treated like entertainment news. There isn't the same demarcation between hard news and soft news anymore, except when it comes to gaming, because newspaper editors don't know what section of the paper to put it in. Because it's sort of tech, it's sort of arts, what is it? Anyway, I'm digressing. So you have to remember that the people you have to decide, are you going to fight this? Are you going to fight these people? And how are you going to fight them? They have nothing to lose. Nothing. Doesn't matter how poorly they behave. All that matters is what you do, because the spotlight is on you. You have something to take. Now, some people are like, but I'm nobody. Why they just... And yes, a lot of the stories I have heard last week and this week, these are just regular people who just for whatever reason, the wheel of crap spun and landed on them. And it doesn't terribly seem to make any sense other than proximity to these very moral purity driven kind of guardians that are of all that is right groups, right? If you hang around these groups that just, burn with fire, expunge anyone they don't have perfect agreement with, you're more likely to get canceled just because you're playing with fire, right? So if you see yourself surrounded by people like that, please take my advice and start gradually backing away, very gradually, because an attempt to withdraw is treated as that not being in perfect agreement, right? There are groups of people, granted, if you're watching this channel, welcome, you're a part of a community where one of our big mantras is nobody agrees with anybody 100%. It's a badge of pride of viewers of this channel that we can disagree with each other respectfully. It's sort of the brand, There was a long time where people would put comments of, I don't agree with you 100%, but, and I'm like, I said quite a few times, why do people even say that? Like, why is there an expectation of 100% agreement? And then I realized where these people are coming from, there might have been. You have to get all the answers right or else. So, if you are a member of this channel, if you participate in Twitch, if you leave comments, if you become a patron, this is a community where you will not be excommunicated for wrongthink. It's all about behavior. It's all about treating people decently. And that's where a lot of people mess up. First, that they don't do, I do occasional controlled burns of my community. There are sometimes I want to, okay, everybody just, settle down. I didn't mean anything, like just chill. Other times it's like, you know what? If you're mad at this, see ya. And those controlled burns mean that I don't get a wildfire later. Now, does that mean my channel grows slower? Yeah, it kind of does this. But I don't lose everything because of a couple of bad tweets, right? I have a flexible enough public image that it bends instead of breaks. And that's one of those things that most people realize after the fact is super important. One of the most important things to do when somebody takes a crack at you and you're like, somebody comes at you and is like, all right, here we go. After a while, you get to recognize the people who are poking at you for something, right? Do not name call, because that just gives them a chance to go snip and post, and then they've set the narrative and you're screwed because there's this tweet or there's this message, or there's this email, or there's a text or whatever of you seeming like a terrible person out of context, and there's nothing you can do about it. I am constantly baffled by the fact that once a narrative is set, the people invested in that narrative are not interested in context. They want the face and the heel. They want everything to be wrestling. So keep that in mind. Right? Either you're going to play the heel and go all in on being the heel, or you got to play the face, and the face is the one, you want to pull a Hulk Hogan in his face days, right? Like not the Hollywood Hogan, the Hulkamania Hulk Hogan, where he'd get beaten down and then he'd get up and the crowd would cheer and he'd be like, that's what you're aiming for, right? When somebody takes a crack at you, but you've got to be super beyond reproach to do that. The best thing often to do is say nothing. Let it cool down. I find sometimes it's good to honestly say, I don't know why everyone's yelling at me. I would like to know, but I would like someone to explain it to me without yelling at me and calling me names, because people can understand that, right? if you give people a really easy side-by-side comparison, right, where you're playing fair, the other person's not, see my week, it makes it really easy for people to figure out whose side to be on, as juvenile as that is, right? That's what happens with drama. People pick a side. I don't know why people love to divide into camps that way. If you are going to make a response, and this is very difficult when the adrenaline's going, if your heart is racing, if your hands are shaking, don't speak, don't type, do the U2 song, I feel numb, right? Just put it all down, just stand there and imagine like the Edge is singing in your face right there, right? Oh no, it's the Edge and then Bono, right? That's an old U2 video. But put the damn phone down, take some breaths, figure out what your strategy is before you respond. Because don't say anything you can't prove. And when you're in a heightened state, you're more likely to not deliberately exaggerate, but just your feelings are the most important thing to your reality in that moment because you're in fight or flight mode. Unless you've got real practice at getting momentum going on Twitter, it can backfire really hard. I've had great success at sometimes. It's backfired on me and others. It's possible to overdo it. The way I stop myself from overdoing it is sticking to the facts, trying to keep good humor. Don't try to be tough. Don't try to win. Don't try to win. People are like, what? Isn't this a win-lose? No. This isn't about trying to win. Why? Remember, that other side has nothing to lose. Cancellation is putting someone in a situation where they're in a battle against themselves, or at least their own public image. So if you try to win, you beat yourself, meaning you lose. It's a no-win situation. What you try to do is run it out to basically a null state. Either people are like, I don't want to be bothered, or people go, this is really nothing. You're not trying to get to the state of people are saying, you were so wrong. That's an overshoot. You want people to get to the point where they say, there's no there. And that's a really important distinction. A lot of people try to put up a brave, tough front. And so they respond to the hostility that they're receiving with hostility. And then the people with nothing to lose get that moment where somebody's like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to get you. And that's what they spread all over the place. And the fact that they just threatened you with like 2-3 things before that, nobody cares about that anymore because they got their narrative out first, right? And they've pre-planned, or they have an instinctual skill for this. And that you have to keep in mind. Don't try to win. Don't try to win because you're beating yourself, right? It's social justice warrior going woke. You know, every time he tries to show his wokeness, he's punching himself in the head. That's cancel culture for you, okay? And it's not a left-wing thing exclusively. This is something that has always existed. It used to be like around 7th grade, everybody lost all their friends. Everybody has a traumatic story from like childhood or teenage years where they lose all their friends. Unfortunately, people continue this stupid behavior long into adulthood right now. I mean, we see it with celebrities going back to like Fatty Arbuckle. You could claim like Socrates was canceled. The Athenians love to cancel people. They called it ostracization. They just stripped people of their citizenship and kicked them out for not being proper Athenians, right? Like, cancellation goes back that far. It's the internet that makes it seem so intense. And what happens, seeing it happen to a different person week after week after week. It creates, I swear, I can't prove this. Remember, don't say anything you can't prove. But what I observe is that seeing it happen to other people creates this like trauma among bystanders. And that's a sign of bullying. They know that with bullying that happens, that you have to keep in mind with all of this, that you're performing, for lack of a better term, to the crowd, not the person who's coming at you. Every utterance you make is going to be judged by the audience, right? That's who you're playing to, not the person coming at you. And that's an important thing to keep in mind, because not only are you trying to let them know that you're a good person who might have made a mistake, but you're still a good person. You don't want the fight to get so ugly that people just feel what I used to hear back in the Gamergate days was mom and dad are fighting, right? You don't want it to be so ugly that people just feel shell-shocked. Then they just want to get away from all of it because they're upset. That's why, saying nothing, if you don't know what to say, is a good strategy. Now, the longer you wait to respond to somebody taking a crack at you that way, the better your response better be. But that is possible. It's better to take a while and make a good first impression than to have to clean up a second, third, fourth mistake, right? One of the things I find really useful, on top of not name calling and not saying anything you can't prove, and not trying to be tough. I mean, that's the mistake, bless her, Gina Carano made. She had this tough image because of MMA and the character she played, and I think she felt pressure to maintain that, instead of going, guys, what's going on? Like, what? Why instead of doing the, I'm not gonna fail it, like that worked with some people, but remember I said it just became polarizing. And the longer that Gina Carano thing went on, it's the same thing with the Johnny Depp Amber Heard thing. The uglier it gets, the more sensationalized it gets, the more just gets put on the pile. People just eventually hit a point where I don't want to have anything to do with any of it, right? And by the end of the Gina Carano thing, a lot of, I watched this develop, at least in my circles, a lot of people who sympathized with her and supportive of her were like, not again, What I find useful is you will notice this about me. Try to empathize with the person who's coming at you, not in a condescending way. You don't go, I know you're upset. Because if I'm not upset, that's the first thing you get. You don't condescend. You're speaking for me. You're speaking over me. That's what you'll get. What you do is look, I've done something you don't like. Okay, I accept that. I want to know what it is. I want to understand. And you can lay it out. If you want to engage with a person, I don't recommend it. I don't. If you're going to have a private conversation with somebody who's coming at you that way, be prepared that anything you say is likely to get leaked. You have to watch every word you say. So most of the time it's better to just keep everything public, because it's going to be public anyway. And if you don't take it private, then they can't selectively edit it, though sometimes it blows up in their face if they selectively edit it. But you don't want people thinking you're a bad person. So don't try to make the other person out to be a bad person. Trust me, the crowd will do that for you if they catch them in a lie or a gross exaggeration. Unfortunately, people treat exaggerations or misspeaks as lies all the time. So you don't have to do that work for them. You don't have to be, they're a terrible person. What you have to do is, this is the truth. And This is what it seems to me. It seems to me that this person is in pain. You know, they're still a human being. I just didn't do this thing they claim I did. Now, sometimes somebody will twist your words and then you said it, it's right there. I've been through that so many times. And eventually just to the point of, sometimes you just have to point out, you are speaking about my intents. You are paraphrasing what that tweet said. You don't know what was in my head at the time. I do. So let's talk about what's there. And if it came across the wrong way, all right, fine. Clearly it came across the wrong way, you know, but don't tell me what was in my head. I find that's really useful for diffusing it to a point. Now, this is where you notice I'm like, clearly it came across the wrong way. You got to watch those qualifiers if I just did it right there. They're easy to do when you're trying to piece out what the hell's going on, but you can catch yourself like I just did. Well, clearly I did. If you're wrong, admit it. I know a lot of people feel, because it's that be perfect or else thing, that admitting you're wrong is going to make you seem weaker. But the truth is that the crowd, again, the bystanders, your judges, are looking for the person who seems the most reasonable. And the average person knows what it's like to make a mistake, likes to see people admit they made a mistake, and sincerity goes a long way. So if you are sincere, if you realize you made a mistake, you'll notice I do this on this channel a lot. Like, I'm one of those people, if I make even the tiniest little inaccuracy in a statement, I like to try to clean it up. Sometimes there's so many little things on a Feedback Friday, I can't get to all of them. But, you know, like yesterday's video, all right, enough people thought there was an oversight in what I presented that it was worth the second video. If you do that enough, people, you start gaining trust, you start getting a group of people who will vouch for you. Go, you know what? They're not perfect, but they don't lie. They come at you straight. They admit when they're wrong, and they're open to criticism. And being open to criticism is the biggest insulation against cancellation. Because you don't have a perfect image for them to shatter, right? You don't have this carefully crafted construct that they can just smash like glass. But every so often, it's all going to fail. It's a part of life. Businesses fail, projects fail, sometimes because there are bad actors involved, sometimes not. There is nothing wrong with writing it off and moving on, right? Figure out the difference between good criticism and bad criticism. Figure out which comments are, you know, people legitimately being upset about something and versus people being toxic and just being bullies. More of an art than a science in that one, but do your best. Learn from it, move on. You don't have to do the same thing for your entire life. That's boring. Most people change careers multiple times. You know, most people rebuild. And the minute you stop trying to get back into that toxic community, you find that there are other communities out there that are probably more your speed. And you probably fit in better, places that will appreciate you for you. You're no longer just some show pony that needs to get all the right answers or you're booted out of the club, right? That sounds really scary. But if it's a firm, hard cancellation, that's all you can do, right? Like, think about it. If a TV show's canceled, you're like, no, please give me my job back. Well, the job's gone. The show's canceled, right? But I really want my job back. But there's nothing to go back to. It's canceled. It is gone. Bye-bye. What do actors do? They either retire, start a new business, or audition for other parts or create their own things. They don't keep trying to get that same part back, right? That's how it works. You don't have to defend against every slight. You have to be consistent and speak the truth, even if it's brutal or makes you look bad. That will allow people to see you for who you really are. And it does come down to the golden rule. A lot of this stuff is borrowed from Hillel the Elder, I admit. But it all comes down to, in anything, what is hateful to you, do not do to your fellow. Do not do to your neighbor. Treat people the way you would like to be treated. So if you come out swearing and accusing and, throwing haymakers, don't expect the response to be anything but that. Consistency is really important in this stuff, but so is flexibility. So don't make your own expectations of people so inflexible that you can't live up to them. That might be something we deal with more on Feedback Friday, but hopefully this will help people who have been through it. But this video, mainly, I admit, is to start a conversation, because I've just heard so much about this stuff from people. So what helped? What do you feel I missed? What do you feel needs to be talked about or think or whatever? This is an emotional one, so feel is appropriate. New people, I make a big distinction between things I think and things I feel. They're not the same thing, but more on that in a bit. So this has been Wellness Wednesday. Hope you found this useful. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/LeannaK. And one last shot of Momo yoga. Because I like this picture. Thanks for watching.